Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. My name is Christina. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my most recent reads. This is technically not like recent reads, but these are books that I've been reading, that I've read already since the beginning of this year. These are the books that I've absolutely enjoyed and I've loved so much. I have been keeping on track with my Goodreads, so I'm pretty proud of myself. And I'm just talking about the books that I've absolutely loved so far this year. So if you're interested to see exactly what these books are and you're curious to know my thoughts and you're just curious to know what I've read and what I've really enjoyed, then please keep on watching. Also, I would like to point out the fact that I do sound a little bit crazy today, a little bit congested. I am finally getting over a cold that I had over the past weekend. And then top it off, I've been struggling with my allergies. So yeah, I had a very nasty summer cold mixed in with these allergies. So yeah, it's been all fun here, not gonna lie. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and jump into the first book that's on the top of my little stack here. Granted, it's not gonna be a very long video, so I just kind of wanted to share with you guys like my most recent like favorite books that I've read this year so far, just to kind of keep my brain fresh with it if I happen to like how this is. And if you happen to like my most favorite recent books, and you would like to see like another one in the future, then just let me know. But I'm gonna stop talking and we're gonna talk about these books. The first book I'm gonna be sharing with you guys is Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. So I hadn't planned on reading this book, and I think I mentioned this in a vlog. I don't know, there was something about the cover that really didn't push me to reading the book. That didn't make any sense. I don't know if that made any sense, but anyways, I just didn't have the urge to read this book because I wasn't really feeling the cover. I know that sounds so stupid, but it's the truth. Until I heard a fellow booktuber talking about it and it sounded amazing, so I decided to pick this one up along with reading it with the book club that my friend hosts. We all agreed to read this one as well together. So I'm glad we did so, because let me tell you guys, this book, so we are currently waiting on book 3 to come out and it needs to hurry up and get here. Like, September, where are you at? Because like, I need to know what's gonna happen. So we follow a girl named Amelia, and she recently lost her twin sister, and she didn't lose her twin sister in a like natural cause. She lost her sister in a very traumatic, very vicious, violent way. Her sister's heart was ripped out of her chest, and there's only one thing that could have done this, and it is something that her grandmother has warned them about since they were old enough to understand, and it was by one of the 7 princes of hell. So she automatically knew her sister was wrapped up in some way, somehow, into the 7 princes of hell, which they were pretty much talked about in their entire childhood. Like I said, not to go looking for them, to stay away, always stay protected. And obviously her sister did not. So Amelia is on this vengeance journey to try and discover which prince of hell did this to her sister, and she wants to kill that prince because, like I said, she's in a vengeance state and grieving as well. So doing all that, she happens to summon, I did forget to mention, Amelia and her sister and her family are from a line of witches, so she's a witch. She summons one of the demons and doesn't realize what demon she's going to get. She's hoping that whatever demon comes up will give her the answers that she seeks, but she also knows that she has to give to get, if that makes any sense. Like, she has to give something in return to get something in return, something like that. So when she does this, she doesn't expect to get the demon who she does get, and it's also a demon that her grandma has warned them about the most, which is Prince Wrath. But not only does she summon him, she somehow connects him and her. I don't know, she does the summoning spell and somehow it connects him and her together, binding them in a way where he can't hurt her, and he has to have some kind of form of protection on her against his will. So Let me tell you, when we were reading this book, we could not get enough of Prince Wrath. He is so freaking hot. I mean, they do talk about the other wicked, is what they also call them. The other princes are like the wicked. They do describe a lot of the other brothers, and they do describe them very well. But when it comes to Wrath's description, it was so alluring. I mean, so hot. I could not. I'm obsessed with Wrath at this point. I'm in love with him. He's giving me very Hades vibes from like A Touch of Darkness, if you've ever read that, or even Rhysand vibes from A Court of Thorns and Roses. I feel like Wrath is he is portrayed as somebody that's very evil, very hateful, very malicious, but deep down he's the complete opposite, and he has this persona that he wants people to think that he is this very hateful, evil person, so that way he's feared. So that's what I'm getting very much from Wrath. I absolutely loved this book. We already read book 2, which was Kingdom of the Curse. So I mean, it was such a good time reading this book. I am absolutely in love with Wrath. Amelia, on the other hand, has been getting on my goddamn nerves the entire time. She's also giving me very much Feyre vibes from A Court of Thorns and Roses, like very naive, but wants to know and wants to do everything her way, but doesn't really like care for the consequences, or she feels like consequences are like something that could never happen to her. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book so much. I want to reread it already, but I'm gonna wait a little bit. I'm not gonna reread it until like it gets closer to the 3rd book coming out, but I cannot wait. This is definitely a favorite, and I'm so glad I finally read it, or I decided to pick it up. The next book we read, or I read, is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. So again, this is another book that I never thought to pick up, but my friend reached out to me and wanted me to be a part of her book club, the same book club that we read Kingdom of the Wicked. And this was actually the first book we read for that book club. And like I said, this is a book that I didn't really think to pick up, because honestly, like, I've been on such a fantasy kick for a very long time. This is definitely not fantasy. This is definitely mystery. So, or I guess contemporary or fiction. I really don't know how to describe genres. But my friend described it to me and it sounded really good, so I went ahead and looked into it. It sounded like something that I could be interested in, so I picked it up. And was I very interested. This book is so intriguing. It's so fast-paced. It's so upbeat. There's not a dull moment in this read. If this is a book that you've thought about reading but you haven't gotten to it for some reason, I don't know, you definitely need to read this, because this book is so good. We follow a teenager by the name of Pip, and I believe she's like in her junior year of high school or her senior year of high school, one of the two, but she has this project that she wants to do, or she has to do by the end of the year for one of her classes, and she decides to do her project on a murder case that happened in her small little town. She never believed it to be what it was. She always felt like the case was closed, but it just wasn't like investigated the way it should have been. Like, it just didn't make sense to her how everything unfolded. So she decided to take matters into her own hands and kind of reopen up the case. She is so smart. I freaking love Pip. She is such a smart girl, and the way she goes about doing her investigation is so freaking amazing. So what she does is she is trying to pretty much clear the name of the person that was convicted of the murder, but he's also dead. So yeah, she feels like the cops pretty much just pinned the murder on him, as like his suicide was like a confession to the cops. Like, because he committed suicide, they felt like that was a confession for him, pretty much saying he killed the girl in the story. So it's Pip's job to kind of figure out the truth and clear Sal's name. This book was really good. It was such a page turner. When you think of mysteries, a lot of mysteries are pretty predictable. This one, I felt like I was getting close to figuring out who could have done it, who the actual killer was, and then it would just like flip and be something completely different. And it was amazing. I was shocked, to say the least, about this book whenever the truth finally came out. So this is a trilogy. So I did read books 1, 2, and 3 already, and they were all so good. I will say books 1 and 2 were probably my favorite. Book 3 was a little bit more on the slower side. It was still very interesting, very good, but definitely books 1 and 2 were the ones that were, I mean, Holly Jackson did such an amazing job writing this story. It was something that was so fast paced, and when I say you did not predict who the killer would be, like you think you know who it is, but then the rug gets swept right under you and you're back to square one all over again with Pip. And it was amazing. I loved it. Definitely highly recommend this book to anybody that's looking for something that's fast paced, something that's a little mysterious, but something that's also a page turner, because this book, I could not put it down. It was really, really good, and that's saying a lot. So the next book that I really enjoyed was After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. When I say this book was so relatable, I mean, it was so relatable on so many levels. We follow a young couple, Lauren and Ryan, who met in college and got married right after college. So they've been together for 10 years. They were, I guess, college sweethearts. I don't even know if that's a thing, but they've been together for 10 years. They're already like into like their adulthood, like damn near 30. And during that time, Lauren is starting to get to a point where she feels like their marriage is kind of falling apart. They're not as spicy as they once were when they were first together, like in their college years. She's noticed that over the years, her and Ryan are kind of like not as addicting to each other as they once were. And this is kind of giving her the thought that maybe she's falling out of love with him, and vice versa. Maybe she also thinks that maybe he's falling out of love with her as well. One night after a big fight, she pretty much comes out and tells him like, hey, look, I am not in love with you anymore, and I feel like we need to separate. This completely crushes Ryan, because she pretty much just drops as a bomb on him. I guess this is something he wasn't expecting, but he's also felt like there's just been a shift in their relationship. So they come to an agreement to split up for a year, to have no contact with one another, don't email, don't call, nothing, and just leave each other be for a whole year to kind of discover who they are and if being with each other is what they really want. So that's what they do. But in between this, Lauren discovers a lot through Ryan's emails, a lot of draft emails that he was trying to send to her but didn't send to her during their split. And a lot of them held a lot of his like truths about how he felt about certain situations throughout their marriage. And then she realizes that there are a lot of things that he needed to fix as well, and that she needed to fix as well. So a very tragic thing happens in their family. After almost 10 months of being separated, something very tragic happens in their family, and this is what brings them back together. This is where they realize, like, even though they've lived without each other and they know they can live without each other, they don't want to. They feel like they are each other's people, like they want to be with one another. And this literally brings them to a point where they realize that they are for each other, they're meant for each other, and the things that they weren't doing in their relationship, they need to continue to do. They need to do better in their relationship. They learned that the biggest thing about their relationship was that they weren't being honest with one another. They were pretty much doing things to please one another, but not necessarily being honest about what they were doing. This was definitely a good read. I absolutely loved it. It was so relatable, and I really, really enjoyed it. And hopefully I did a good job with explaining it. But I mean, if not, you can always like look it up and see if it's something that you might be interested in. So the next book I picked up was based on a recommendation by my daughter's friend's mom, and this is Verity by Colleen Hoover. This is the first Colleen Hoover book that I've read. I do own another one, but I haven't read it yet. Allie from the Chaotic Reader sent it to me a couple years ago, and I haven't read that one yet. But now that I've read this one, it makes me want to read other books by this author. I know she's very controversial. I don't know exactly what has been said about her, but I know she is controversial. But nonetheless, I do have a few of her other books that were gifted to me, so I want to try and read them to see if they're as good as this one. I really enjoyed this one. When it was recommended to me, she did mention that it was a little thriller-ish, and that kind of like made me not want to read it. And I did tell her, like, I'm not really a big fan of thrillers, but you know what, if you said it was good, if you say it's good, I'll give it a try. And that's exactly what I did, and I'm glad I did, because let me tell you, this book had me on the edge of my seat. I wanted to throw this book at the door. I wanted to rip it in half. This book had me on an emotional roller coaster, and not in a good way. I was so pissed half the time reading this book. And not that it wasn't enjoyable, it was just that the main character, we're about to get to it. So Lowen is one of the main characters, Lowen Ashley. She's a very small author, not a very big fan base. She has written a couple books. And one day her publisher reaches out to her and pretty much tells her, or her agent actually reaches out and says, hey, they want to set up a meeting. Somebody wants to meet with you. Come in. And during the meeting, she is being offered an opportunity to finish a series for a very big author. And when she discovers who this author is, she's kind of set back, because she knows that she is nowhere near on the level of this author that wants her to finish her series for her. And that author is Verity Crawford, who is like this very big author. She's very big in the book world and has a very big fan base. So when she is asked to take on this project, she's set back, because like I said, she just doesn't feel like she's on that level to even be considered a person to finish the series for this set author. With a lot of convincing and a lot of back and forth, Lowen decides to take on the offer and help Verity Crawford finish her book series. Now, Verity was in a very bad car accident, and Lowen does not know the severity of it. She just feels like maybe she's just unable to travel to like do a lot of meet and greets. That was her idea as far as like the accident. But when she is given the opportunity to go over to their house and like look through all of Verity's notes and kind of like get a feel of like who she is as a writer, and upon looking through all her notes, she comes across this autobiography by Verity, and she flips through it, and this is where she discovers a lot of deep, dark secrets that Verity has done throughout her life, from the moment she met her husband to having children to the state that she's in now with the car accident. And let me tell you, when it is a bunch of crazy shit, I mean, it is so freaking crazy. When I was reading this book, I literally was like, oh my gosh, this lady needs to be checked into a goddamn institute. She does not need to be walking around on this earth. She is a psychopath. That is literally the entire time I was reading this book. Every time she would open up the autobiography to read another chapter, I wanted to freaking strangle Verity through the book. So coming down to the last book that I read, I don't have it physically with me, but I'll put it on the screen. I just finished The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I don't think I am. But I read this book also with the book club that my friend hosts. And let me tell you, that book was also another twisted, not too twisted, but it was like jaw-dropping moment for me. My mind was blown once I got to the end. We follow a therapist by the name of Theo, who's taken on this case to try and figure out why this specific artist decided to stop speaking after her husband's murder, or after she murdered her husband. So there was this very famous, there was this artist by the name of Alicia, and she murdered her husband, and after murdering her husband, she goes completely silent. So they don't know exactly why she murdered her husband. They just know that it had to have been her, because she was the one that was found in the house while her husband was strapped to a chair with several gunshot wounds to his body. And like I said, she was the only one there. So upon investigating and trying to questioning her on why she did it, she went completely silent. So this is what pushed them to check her into a mental hospital, and she's been there ever since, until one day Theo takes it upon himself to try and discover why she stopped talking after she murdered her husband. But then he starts to uncover a lot of deep, dark secrets that happened in her childhood past that probably led up to the reason why she killed her husband, because she also struggled a lot of mental issues. She was very mentally ill. But nonetheless, like, it was still good. I wasn't expecting the ending to go the way it did, but just watching everything unfold, it started making a lot of sense, but also was just, like I said, it was really crazy. I was not expecting the ending to end the way it did. So yeah, I definitely liked it so much. It was a good one. It had me on the edge of my seat. That one was really good. But yeah, that's it for today's video, you guys. I have to hop off because my throat is itching. If you can't tell by the way I sound now, my throat's itching really bad. So hopefully I did really good with this wrap up, and I can shorten it a little bit so that way it's not so chaotic. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.